Yes, I'm Jørgen Dreyer, CEO of Saniona, and Saniona is a Danish company listed at Nasdaq Stockholm. And we are focused in the orphan disease space with the product Tesomet, and what we want to do is to bring that product all the way to the market. So the phase 2 data just came out a couple of weeks ago and looks very promising, and this is just a statement from the press release from our primary investigator in Hungary who really likes this drug. So we are in orphan diseases, and the management focuses completely on this Tesomet product in 2 orphan diseases. One is called Prader-Willi syndrome, the other one hypothalamic obesity. As I mentioned, we have already proof of concept in Prader-Willi syndrome, and we are now completing the recruitment in the hypothalamic obesity study running in Denmark. We have the opportunity to go all the way to the market here. It's rare diseases with small clinical studies and relatively small market need for market force. The company is based on a platform which has really delivered a number of partnerships and also compounds into the development. So we have partnered with Pfizer, with J&J, with Boehringer, and that has really paid all our research costs since the inception and also some of the clinical costs. But more than that, it has also delivered some programs into our own pipeline. So today I'll just talk about the Tesomet product. We'll not have time for anything else, and that is also clearly the most important value driver of the company, as I mentioned, in 2 indications, Prader-Willi syndrome and hypothalamic obesity in phase 2. We have other programs in the early development, and we have, as I said, a number of partnerships. I'll just mention the tesofensine product here, which is going towards the market. It's in the registration phase in Mexico, and we are expecting royalties to kick in from that next year. Also, I could mention that on this program, which we formed a spin-out around some years back, still have an ownership in the company and also some royalties on the product. They are in phase 2 with that product, and just mentioned a couple of days ago that there are positive data from that, and they're going into other indications now as well. But back to Tesomet and to these 2 indications. Both rare diseases and both indications are about a complete lack of appetite control. So these patients have an obsession with food. They cannot think about anything but food. And that is actually life-threatening, at least in the case of Prader-Willi syndrome, which is the genetic disease, but also in this acquired disease, hypothalamic obesity, it is very severe. There is an estimated market opportunity here in the billion-dollar range in both of these indications based on analyst reports. So we are around here right now, have just completed the phase 2A study here with very good results, and are now planning for the final pivotal studies, phase 2B and phase 3, before potential filing in 2022. And with the hypothalamic obesity, phase 2 running, but with a shorter development time, we expect there to be about the same time. So a little bit more about Prader-Willi syndrome, as I said, characterized by this obsession with food, which is, as I said, life-threatening, because 30 to 50% of the patients will actually die from accidents, and accidents through eating too much. They will choke and they will have suffocation from eating too much. Their bowel will rupture. It's actually quite a number of the patients that die in a young age just because of accidents. Then, of course, on top of that, they will have obesity and diabetes and a lot of other complications because they get usually very big. So you need to control these patients all their life, and it's terrible for the patients, for the parents. It's not a very common disease, about 1 out of 40,000, and in Europe and US it would be about 20,000 patients. But still, since we are expecting very high prices, or at least the analysts are expecting very high prices here, as usually is the case in such a disease, $100 to $200,000 per year in US. And since there is no approved treatment, we think it's a very, very interesting business opportunity for us, which will also call for small studies, short studies, and commercialization should be straightforward. So why does Tesomet work? Well, this is the mechanism of action, and we think it really fits exactly into the unmet need in Prader-Willi patients, because it works on the reward center and on the appetite center. And this is where the craving for food comes from. This is where the appetite control sets in. And these three neurotransmitters, which the compound increases the level of, they will all work in these centers and decrease craving for food, decrease appetite, and actually give an increased fat burn. We also believe that the Tesomet product is useful for long-term treatment because it's cardiovascular neutral as a combination of two drugs. And we have a new patent position on this combination going on till 2036. So now to the data. We just completed this phase 2A study in Prader-Willi syndrome, and it has been running for a couple of years, but it has also been a study that we have learned really a lot from. It has been done both in adult patients and in teenagers and adolescent patients. It has been done with 3 different doses, and it has been running in some patients for up to 9 months and with shifting doses along the way, measurements every month. So we have a lot of data points out of these 18 patients that went through this exploratory study. And the conclusion is here. We have determined the dose, the right dose, to be 0.25 milligram, where we both have a very nice effect on what we call hyperphagia, this obsession with food. We have a very nice weight reduction, BMI reduction, and it's very well tolerated at this dose. We have a plasma level, or a level of the drug in the blood of 10 nanogram per mil. And that is exactly where we want it to be, because we know from a previous study in obese patients that this is where the compound works best. At a lower dose, we didn't reach that target level, and also there was limited effect here on hyperphagia. There was some effect on weight, and it was very well tolerated. At the higher dose, which we studied in adult patients, we got up to very high concentrations in the blood and saw extremely nice effects on both these parameters, but also some of the patients didn't tolerate this well. So we have found the sweet spot here. I'll just very quickly run through some data slides. We don't have much time for that, but just to show you the impressive data. This is on hyperphagia, which is a questionnaire that the parents fill out. And as you can see, during the study in these adult patients, this hyperphagia score went down essentially to 0. And that has never been seen before. These patients really stopped this craving for food. Some of them left food on the table, which they have never done before. Here, the placebo came back to about starting level. Also, there was a nice weight reduction in the study. This is from the second part of the study in the teenagers, in the adolescents, which was a little more complicated because it was first running as a double-blind with a low dose, and then continued at the same low dose for another 3 months, and then we shifted to the 0.25 milligram. And as you can see, the hyperphagia score went down to very low level, stayed down at very low level for 9 months, actually. Quite impressive. And when we looked at weight, this was similar. The 0.25 dose gave a very nice weight reduction. As you can actually see that the patients were growing. These were teenagers. They were growing quite a bit, both in the placebo group and also in the low dose group in the beginning in the first 6 months of the study. So this is a very strong data in our mind, and also it was very nice when our primary investigator, Dora Torak, came and visited us a couple of weeks ago. She said what she had seen in the patients, very convinced that this is a strong effect. And when the patients got out of the treatment, they took on weight, they got the hyperphagia back. So the other indications, I will not have much time to talk about the hypothalamic obesity, but it's actually a disease where you get a damage to the appetite center, and then you get more or less the same symptoms as the Prader-Willi patients. These patients are otherwise normal, so you use the same dose as you would do in the normal obese population, so it's somewhat simpler. As I mentioned, we are doing studies now in Denmark, up to 25 patients, and we are completing the recruitment very, very soon now. Yes, I should be stopping now. I mentioned the Medix situation where they are filing now and hopefully get on the market next year, and we'll have a stable royalty income from that. And this is then just the lots of upcoming news. Some of them already completed since this summer, but still a lot of events in the Prader-Willi, in the hypothalamic obesity, in the Mexico thing, in the Medix, and also other programs that we have either partnered or they are in our own pipeline. Thank you.